You know I try to be a good man, I always give it my best. But truth be told, someday I wanna go to the wild, wild west.
And now, live from our Smokehouse studio, it's time for Real Estate Jerky. All your real estate questions answered by our provocatively lean expert hosts, Edward Ed Parcaut, MBA, veteran, and president of Lending for Living. We'll give you something to chew on. Real Estate Jerky is on now.
Thanks for joining us here on Real Estate Jerky. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, president of Lending for Living, along with Marlene Chaplin, my trusty sidekick and co-host. We're on the road keeping things real and relevant throughout Stanislaus County, San Joaquin, Merced counties, and into the foothills. Our studio is wherever we have a solid Wi-Fi connection, and our fabulous engineer, Mike Murray, and the incredible radio signal, iHeartMedia, and this station, KFIV. We always bring you something here to chew on Real Estate Jerky. And today we'll be talking about some difficult subjects, crime in Stanislaus County. If you have any questions and you want to get your answers, please call us or text me at 209-404-1915. Again, that's 209-404-1915, or email at radio@realestatejerky.com. Hello, Marlene. How you doing today?
Hi, Ed. Does this feel like the longest January ever?
You know, I don't know if it's the longest, but it's, you know, we got our snow in December versus usually we get that big storm in January. So all the snow is melting. Next thing you're going to hear, we're in a drought. Right?
Well, we are.
Because they're going to let all that water out because there's no place to store it. But that's not today's show. So let's move on.
We've had it before and we're going to have it again. Actually, what's going on? Because I heard the interest rate ran up and then it went down. And then what's happening with real estate?
Well, you know, interest rate in the market just, you know, had issues this week because of the whole Russia thing. Interest rates went up and then kind of came back, and now they're kind of just settling there. They're going to move all over the place the next year because the fear of inflation, the inflation that's there, you know, unless you're the president, you think that everybody who talks about it is the, you know, I can't say on air. But
I can't even believe. Here's the thing.
Hot mic.
We can't get all political right now.
No, let's move on. Anyway, so let me keep going. We only have a few minutes. We have a long show today. But basically, the most important thing that we saw, you know, they put out last week, which we didn't talk about, that new existing home sales were down, right, for the month. They were down. Well, basically, we were down. You know, inventory itself is 19% lower than it was a year ago at this time. Well, a year ago at that time, the inventory was down lower because of the fact lower than the year before, which was COVID, and nobody wanted to sell their house during that period of time because they didn't want any people walking through it and all that stuff. The last 6 months of that year was crazy. But if you look at overall, the reason our numbers are down is because the inventory isn't there. If you want to sell your house, you can put it on the market, it'll be sold, it'll be gone, but you can't get your next one. And there's so many other things that are coming into play. I said this before, you know, existing home sales was 85% of the market. I feel that's going to get on to 50%. And right now, new home sales aren't going to make that up. So we have issues right now. People wanting to buy a home, you're having issues. People who want to rent a home, you're having issues. There's just not enough homes out there right now for people to buy and rent. And the ones that are there are very expensive, and it's going to continue to go up. So do your best, get pre-qualified.
You're listening to Real
pre-approved.
Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV with our host, Ed Parcaut, MBA veteran, mortgage advisor extraordinaire, and president of Lending for Living. You can reach out to Ed at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915, or visit lendingforliving.com, or you can email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. It is the craziest phenomena right now as far as inventory, buying a home, selling a home. It's still an incredible, there is no inventory. When whatever they're building is already sold, right?
Right. And they're only building, you know, each of these complexes 450, like the one in Patterson that just was released.
But they're sold. They're sold. As soon as they start putting them up, they're sold.
Well, of course, because there's so many people want it and they want a house. But the biggest problem with that is the issue is you got to sell you can't be in a house. They don't want it a contingent offer. So you can't own a home. You have to, you know, sell it and rent it or something. And that's biggest problem. So most of the people buying those don't have a home. So it's a perfect storm, and it's not going to change for a very long time. So get used to this.
Yeah, as far as trying to buy a home, people think, oh, it's going to go down. The price is going to go down. It's not going down.
No.
If anything,
I mean, we might
Mike
move
said
into a
third
third
world
world country if we keep going the way we're going with, politics and all the other
They
stuff.
want it. That's what they want. They
Yeah.
want to be the elite. King
Olive,
Gavin.
it's called Olive Guard.
Oh,
It's the Olive
yes,
Guard. People in
please, I'm
charge
so
make the
amazing.
money, but we're not supposed to be that political right now. So let's not. Let's talk. I think we need to talk to the sheriff and see how our area is doing.
Yeah, let's do it. For the past 22 months, COVID has ruled every headline and nearly every conversation. So does that mean that crime took a break? Well, rather than speculate about that, or worse, just stick your head in the sand or pretend you didn't. We're going to talk to Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse, and he'll be joining us with crime stats up to the minute, some disturbing trends, and how we can overcome them. If you've got questions, dial our host Ed Parcaut at 209-404-1915, because knowledge is power and there are things you need to know. So don't go away. Welcome back. I'm Marlene Champlin, sidekick to our host Ed Parcaut, here at Real Estate Jerky on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV, where we always give you something to chew on. If you've got questions for Ed, just dial 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915. Or visit lendingforliving.com. And now, one of my favorite public servants, our guest today, Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse. Hello, Sheriff.
Hi, Marlene. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Like I told you, we're doing an old school radio today. I've got a funky pair of headphones in, so I'm hearing myself twice. You can laugh louder than that, I know. And Ed's going, oh, crap.
Well, at least she gets to hear herself twice now, not just us.
Yeah.
Marlene always does the
Sorry
script for
about
me,
that.
and she writes stuff on here for me. And I'm reading it going, I did not know you had a son in that's serving in the military right now.
Yeah, he's at West Point right now. Yeah, he's a sophomore at West Point. So he is suffering through the worst academic year of the 4-year experience right now. But he is surviving, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, because my son's he's in Anchorage, Alaska. He's an Army airborne medic. So
Yep.
It's amazing how fast those guys get ranked, though. Took me 5 years, and I couldn't even get to where he's at right now within 2.5 years.
That's awesome, though. That's good for him.
Yeah. All right, so all the fun stuff's out of here. Let's talk about all the negative stuff. So you want to give us some county stats, crime stats, or are we supposed to give you those crime stats?
No, they are literally hot off the press, literally as of the. And I'm going to say that this is what I'll call the rough draft. These are not validated numbers. It's kind of the first iteration. So what happens with crime stat? We track them throughout the year on a monthly basis, and we track them functionally almost in real time. But kind of from that validated point through a monthly basis, and then at the end of the year we do a scrub. So I'll say these are our rough draft stats, somewhat subject to change, and I just got them this morning because they take about 60 to 90 days to kind of stabilize as we finalize reports from the prior year and so on and so forth. Anyway, so where we are right now, it's actually 2021 was, again, a pretty good year for our county. We have generally seen a downward trend in crime in the last several years. Looking at these numbers for Part 1 crimes, which are homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, functionally since 2012, they have been on a downward trend. In 2012, we had 3,500, a little over Part 1 crimes. The rough draft here has 1,800 in 2021. So functionally about half. And that trend has continued. And so, specifically, I mean, this is a real estate show, right? And at some level. Yep. And I think one key thing that, and I've talked about this in the public a few times, is that, as we compare ourselves to the Bay Area, Sacramento, Southern California, the big cities, people think of Modesto and Stanislaus County as having a lot of crime, and we are actually very low in terms of those, when we compare to those other areas. They, as you see in the news, their murders, their shootings and so on are kind of through the roof in the last year, but we aren't seeing that here. And I attribute that to the good work of the sheriff's office and all of our other law enforcement agencies in the county. And I think that that's a very good thing. Now, that does not mean that there's not stuff to be concerned about. We've talked about on this show before, we have more prisoners getting released. They go out and they reoffend, the state prisoners, and they go out and they reoffend, they land back in our jail. One thing that I do believe has really happened in the last several years, when you go back, say, to Prop 47 and so on, when some stuff got decriminalized, or it went from a felony to a misdemeanor. So that changes the dynamics as well in our crime stats. I think it makes it look better than it really is. So I want to acknowledge that. And then with that, I also think a lot of stuff is unreported or underreported. I was just in a meeting on Monday afternoon with a bunch of citizens regarding homelessness and some related things. And one gentleman I spoke to afterwards, he was relaying several incidents that had occurred at one of his businesses that he literally never reported, and, being threatened with a knife, and other items, sticks, whatever the case may be. They're not reported because it's that Prop 47 mentality of why am I going to bother? Why am I going to burden law enforcement with that? And so when we talk crime stats, I think there are some key takeaways from it. I think, one, our county is in really good shape when you look at other areas across the state, across the country. I also think that, like I've said, it's underreported or unreported. Many crimes are, and I think that we have to keep both of those in mind when we look at stats. And I do not base everything solely off stats. They are a useful tool, a useful metric, but those individual experiences that you hear from the community, those are equally valuable in us deciding how we take action.
You're listening to Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV with today's guest, Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse. If you've got questions or comments for the sheriff, you can reach out online at SCSD. That's Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department, right? SCSDonline.com. Or dial the non-emergency number, please. 209-525-7117. That's 209-525-7117. If you've got questions for our host, Ed Parcaut, our MBA veteran and mortgage advisor extraordinaire, also president of Lending for a Living, you can reach out to Ed at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915, or visit lendingforliving.com. You can also email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about, Sheriff. Right now, you're talking about the individual things that occur, those personal experiences. And one of them that's hit very close to home this last year that I know has, 800% gone up, and that's fentanyl in Stanislaus County. And when I say it hit home, we've lost some wonderful young men. They made a mistake. In one case, I know you talked about it last year, and hopefully you can bring it up again, not to bring pain to the parents, but to honor their son was he made a mistake. He took a drug that he thought was an illegal drug, not prescribed for him. And it turned out to be laced with fentanyl. So, I mean, I could start crying over this because it's so, and now it's a problem here in Stanislaus County, right?
Yes. We have really seen fentanyl go up functionally exponentially in the last few years. 4 or 5 years ago, we heard a lot about fentanyl. It seemed to be kind of an East Coast or a Midwest type of drug. That was the issue back there. The stories that we heard coming from East Coast or the Midwest, we were simply not seeing here. That is no longer the case. We are absolutely seeing the rise in fentanyl here in Stanislaus County. And it doubles or triples every year for the last several years. And what people don't understand about fentanyl, and this is why it's so insidious, is a dust mote sized grain of it can kill somebody. Let's face it, drugs are not made with the greatest of science. They are made in hotel rooms and garages, with pill presses. The drug dealers are not scientists. They do not do things well and correctly, and their dosages are completely out of whack. And then they lace things with fentanyl for a better high that people don't expect to have fentanyl in it. It could be marijuana. It could be some other, what you think is a prescription drug. And in the last year especially, we have had many situations where what I would consider children, 14, 15, 16-year-old young men and women that are making mistakes, right? They're maybe given into peer pressure or having some sort of anxiety or mental illness or whatever the case may be. They turn to experimentation with drugs, thinking it's something, maybe some sort of prescription med that's going to help them out. One incident can kill them. And that is what makes fentanyl so incredibly dangerous. We had a seizure, we're going to say 3 or 4 months ago. I think it was 8 or 10 pounds, if I recall correctly. And I don't know what the purity level was, but if that was pure, it was fentanyl. But if it was 100% pure fentanyl, that is enough fentanyl to kill everyone in the state of California. All pushing 40 million of us.
I know, restate that, because I don't think people understand, Sheriff, how deadly fentanyl is and how prevalent of a cut their dealers are doing with it. Why is that? We don't have that much time till we go to a hard stop, but I know you have the answer. You know why that is. And I think most people would do better if they knew better.
Well, and so I guess why do the dealers do it? They're unscrupulous about making money, right? And the challenge with fentanyl for us is finding it, because such a small amount. Let's face it, a pound, right? You can put that in 2 bags, half a pound each, shove them in a couple of jacket pockets, and that is a lot of fentanyl. And so it's very difficult for us to find. Let's say we talked about weed grows, right? We hammer those. Weed grows are really easy for us to find, right? We fly the helicopter, look, there's one. We do a little bit of our other work and we get a warrant, we can eradicate it. When you talk about fentanyl, that again, you can move it in pockets, in a duffel bag, a school backpack can have, enough fentanyl in it to kill the state of California. And it's just so easy to hide and move around. It's easy, the vast majority of it comes over the border from Mexico. And the fentanyl typically originates in China, goes to Mexico, comes over the border into California or elsewhere in the US. But from California, then it spreads out across the US. The I-5 and 99 corridor is a major north-south distribution network, because they can hit then all of the major east-west corridors that head across our country. It's just so easy to get here, right? You can hide it anywhere. And it's really tough for us to have dogs say that find it, because if the dogs can smell it, there's a good chance we'll kill the dog. All right. So our detection of it, we've got to have a human being tell us who's dealing. And that takes a lot of work. And we are very committed to going after it. It's just, it is compared to some of the other drugs, takes a lot more work to find.
Wow.
So this is how you protect your primary and most basic investment, your home and your family and yourself by being in the know, keeping up with what the experts that care and are here to serve you have to say. Like today's guest, Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse. When we come back, our host, Ed Parcaut, veteran and president of Lending for Living, is going to give you the straight stuff about real estate. And Sheriff, but first we're going to talk some more with Sheriff Dirkse. If you've got any questions, please reach out at 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915, or visit lendingforliving.com or email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. I hope you'll stick around because we're not done. And this stuff's really important. Talking to the sheriffs where you get it straight from the horse's mouth. So don't go away. This is Real Estate Jerky on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV. I'm Marlene Champlin, sidekick to our amazing host, Ed Parcaut, MBA, veteran, mortgage guru, and president of Lending for Living. We're picking up where we left off. We're talking to Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse about something that is here in Stanislaus County. Some of you already know it. A lot of us know it now because we've lost loved ones, and that's fentanyl, as well as talking about illegal marijuana grows and just how pervasive and how prevalent. And if you're not educating parents, grandparents, if you're not educating your youngest children not to accept anything and put it in their mouth from anybody but you, or you're doing them a disservice. It's not just about anymore say no to drugs, because as our sheriff was telling us before, he's seeing, well, I'll let you tell it. You're seeing young teens that we were just talking about who made a mistake, took something from somebody that was purported to be a prescription or even marijuana, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dead. It's over.
I mean, it's happened countless times across the county. I know recently, specifically in the city of Waterford, we've had a couple of cases like that where, you know, a 14, 15-year-old kids are taking something and it's causing them to die. And I mean, kind of to your point, Marlene, parents have to be involved in their kids' lives. I realize not everyone has that traditional nuclear family. So I'm going to use the term parent broadly. It can be a parent, a grandparent, aunt and uncle, of, you know, the neighbors, a mentor, someone from school or church, coaches, whatever the case may be. That parent figure, you have to be involved in kids' lives. And, you know, certainly for the actual biological parents, you know, there was a thing on TV or something some time ago. It was an ad type of campaign about, you know, if you have dinner together as a family one night a week, your kids are, you know, 70% less likely to do drugs. Something to that effect. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I remember it was dinner one night a week as a family. And if we can get our community to engage in that manner, you know, that dinner one night a week, parents be involved in your kids' lives, know what's going on. A lot of this is preventable. You know, if your kids are struggling, hopefully they view you as a safe place to come and talk. I realize kids are not going to say, "Hey, mom and dad, I'm thinking about experimenting with some drugs." You're going to have, I mean, hopefully they would, but I also understand kids. I've got 3 of them. You know, it's the intention of it is that parents understand when something is off with their kids and then get them help. You know, so many people nowadays view marijuana specifically as being harmless. And I'm not really here to talk one way or the other. It is legal in the state of California. I don't particularly condone that. But, you know, people lace marijuana with fentanyl and that can kill someone. And so parents do not take this viewpoint that marijuana is harmless to your kids. There's a bajillion other reasons why it can have negative impacts on their lives too. But we see that marijuana laced with fentanyl. And so these parents that have this, oh, it's just a joint. No, it might be. And it also might be something far, far worse that could kill your kid the first time they've ever tried it. So parents, you have to be involved with your kids' lives. You have to know what's going on with them. You have to have the tough conversations about don't do that stuff.
I hear about this stuff on TV. You hear about it coming across. Is it coming across our border because our borders open, like in Texas and certain places where they're coming across, or is it just it's too hard to find? It doesn't matter where they do it.
It's really yes to both of those. Fentanyl, especially, kind of as we talked earlier on the show. You don't need a large space to transport a significant amount of fentanyl. So if you're talking marijuana, a lot of marijuana is like a truckload, right? When you're talking meth, coke, heroin, you're talking, a lot is in, the dozens or the hundreds of pounds. A lot of fentanyl is a pound to 10 pounds. That's a lot of fentanyl. And so you can hide that in so many places that when you think about our border, even just with all the legal crossings, you're talking about thousands upon thousands of vehicles every day, people, right? You can put it anywhere and it's so hard to detect. Imagine a semi coming across the border, hauling perfectly legitimate stuff, right? They find one spot on there where they can create a hidden compartment and shove 10, 20 pounds in. That's a lot of fentanyl, and extremely difficult to detect. Couple that with functionally open and porous borders, and you create an environment where the stuff can literally just pour across the border. And then it comes across our entire state and country.
You're listening to Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV with today's guest, Stanislaus County Sheriff Jeff Dirkse. If you've got questions or comments for the sheriff, you can reach out online at scsdonline.com. That's SCSD, like Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department, at csdonline.com, or call the non-emergency line, please, 209-525-7117. If you've got questions for our host at Parcaut, MBA veteran and mortgage advisor and president of Lending for Living, you can reach out to Ed at 209-404-1915. Okay, quickly, because I wanted to hear about this too, is trafficking. I've known about it for a long time because we have Without Permission, a nonprofit here that helps women, and I've been involved off and on with them for quite a while, since the beginning. So it's been a problem for the beginning, but it's a bigger problem, bigger than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Without Permission, specifically, I did Leadership Modesto several years ago. I'm thinking 2014, if I'm not mistaken, 2013, 14, somewhere in there. And I'm sure we were the best class ever.
No,
but
anyway.
Okay. Sorry, Ed. But as part of that, on our nonprofit day, I was a patrol sergeant at the time, but we went to Without Permission. And I remember sitting in their presentation thinking, yeah, this is not accurate, right? We don't have human trafficking like that. I was a street sergeant. Subsequently, as I was back out on the street, kind of paying more attention, looking at, this young man, young woman, whatever the case may be, I'm like, that kind of resonates with what they talked about it Without Permission. I think this could be human trafficking. So over the next several months, I really became aware of how prevalent it is in our community, and credit to Without Permission for raising awareness on this particular issue. And I will tell you, it is pervasive. And there are two forms of human trafficking. Most people think of the sex trafficking, right, which is common, pervasive. It's everywhere, almost all done online. Through apps or social media or websites or whatever the case may be. But the other part that gets a little bit less publicity is labor trafficking. We talked about weed grows. Almost all of the weed grows that we hit are worked. The laborers there are labor trafficking victims. They've come typically in our area from Modesto or Mexico or Central America. They've come across the border to pay their debt to get over the border. They are working their debt off for someone. They're slaves, they're indentured servants. A lot of them have no idea where they're at. They've been dropped off in our county to work on a grow for a period of time. And 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be, at which point they'll be released so that they can go about whatever it is they're here to do. They are human trafficking victims as well. Even though they intended to come into our country, they weren't kidnapped in Mexico or wherever and brought here to do that. They are being forced to work off their trip, if you will, and that is at best indentured servitude, and at worst slavery. They are trafficked, and so when I became sheriff, one of the pushes was to add a human trafficking detective, and we are the only law enforcement agency in the county that has a full-time human trafficking detective. And I will tell you that's still not enough. As we add staff,
And you guys made a big old bust recently.
yeah, we do a number of operations a year that target typically prostitution, right? The sex side of it, and the prostitutes can get arrested, and they do, but we also try to treat them because they are breaking the law. Prostitution is illegal. However, we also try to treat them as victims of trafficking. We try to connect them to without permission victim services through the DA's office, et cetera, to give them the opportunity to get out of that lifestyle. Not all of them, in fact, not many of them take advantage of that. Much like many folks, they have to ultimately make a decision that says they want to change what's happening in their life, but we at least try to open that door for them to do so. And our goal in those operations, quite frankly, is not to arrest prostitutes. Our goal is to find the pimps, the people that are forcing them into that lifestyle, or have kind of captured them in that lifestyle, oftentimes with drugs. That's how they get them hooked to that. They start giving them drugs. After a while, that person becomes addicted. And now it's like, oh, if you want your fix, if you want your drugs, you're going to go do this out there in the public and, make that money, and I will pay you with drugs. So that's a lot of times how that comes to pass. And so we are very committed here. We have a lot of great partners. Even though we're the only agency with a full-time trafficking detective, many of our partner agencies at Turlock, Modesto, they have people that also participate in these operations with us. And we have a kind of a loose task force that works them. But I will tell you, collectively, law enforcement needs more resources to throw at this problem.
Wow. I guess we got a minute. I thought we were supposed to be going, but anyway, this is, the problem about this, and I don't mean it's a problem, but it's like we have you come on and it just seems so bad in our area now, right? With what you just said, we got fentanyl problems, we got sex trafficking, but overall, our numbers are down for certain crimes, correct? And because you talked about in the beginning, but and is that because they're underreported or not reported at all? You were talking about this before, and I want to bring it back to this because there are a lot of areas are saying our crime is down, and it's because they're not prosecuting them, they're not arresting them. Is that the case in our area, or is that different in our area?
Yeah, I will tell you the answer is yes, kind of to all of that. I do believe crime is down. I do believe that our teams collectively, again, sheriff's office, all of our partner agencies are out there getting after it. And, we are very proactive about taking criminals to jail. I also believe that if you just statistically, crime numbers have fallen so far. I would love to think that we are that effective, but in reality, I believe that many crimes are either completely unreported or underreported. And by that, I mean they're reporting a lower level offense than what actually occurred, with proper investigation. And that is a direct result of some of the laws in our state. Prop 47 is on. A lot of citizens out there just throw up their hands and say, screw it, I'm not going to waste law enforcement's time to report my stolen, whatever, that guy who brandished a knife at me, whatever the case may be. It's not worth anybody's time. And so while I do think we have been effective and we are committed to going after criminals and locking them up, I also believe that people have not reported it the way that it should be reported. And what everybody has to understand is that as the sheriff, any of our police chiefs, even deputies that work the street, we assign resources where crimes are reported. And, as a patrol deputy, when I had my free time, right, if I wasn't on a call, I went to the areas in my beat that had the most crime reports so that I could stop people on cars, bikes, by acting suspiciously. And that's how I could prevent crime, by taking them to jail for a meth pipe, a warrant for their arrest, right? Those people with warrants are typically out there doing some other crime. So if I can take them to jail for their warrant, I may have, prevented Ed, your car from getting broken into, or Marlene, somebody, stealing something off your front porch, stealing your mail. And so, and that's at that deputy level. And as the sheriff, I do exactly the same thing. When I get crime reports, we assign more deputies to go deal with that problem. So the encouragement, and I deal with this probably once a week somewhere in the county, where a community will report, we've had this ongoing issue, and I pull the stats right from the last month. We've had all these break-ins, for example, and I'll pull the stats, and like in 1 month I have one report of a break-in. That's not a crime wave. Well, you go to that community, and one of two things has happened: either they don't report it, right? And so it's happened a dozen times and they just haven't reported it. Well, that doesn't send that demand signal to me. Here's the other, and this is the flip side of that problem. People will get on social media and say, my house was broken into. And then my neighbor gets on social media and says, my neighbor's house was broken into. The guy across the street says, my neighbor's house was broken into. And then it gets repeated. And now suddenly people think there's been 12 break-ins and there's actually only one. It just gets kind of doubled and doubled and doubled again on social media. So there's sometimes a perception of a crime wave in, like in a community, and when in reality, there's literally one incident of it. And so there's two sides of the same coin. One is it's underreported, and then the other is that via social media, it's actually over-reported or kind of over-exaggerated. And but which is why actual data, actual reports, very important. Because I regularly, I'm in front of some community groups saying, hey, no, you only have one problem. Or if there's only one break-in, you're just talking about it too much on social media. Or it's, yeah, you have a real problem, you're just not telling us about it. So actual reporting is critical.
So you want them to report everything, is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Even if they don't want to take the time, still report it. Right.
Yep. Even if it's, you can go online at SCSD online, you can do an online police report, especially if there's no suspect involved. Again, you wake up and your little statue was stolen off your front porch, or whatever the case may be. Your car was broken into and something was stolen, your tools, there's no suspect information. Please still make that crime report, because it gives us the data that we need to assign resources.
And believe it or not, we're at the end.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff.
It's always that way. Time flies
when you're having fun. No, I was going to say, and we can cut this in. So Tuolumne County, we have 32 acres. We put gates up and people kept coming across it. And finally we have cameras and we took pictures of this guy. And we actually put a thing into the sheriff up there. No more than 3 weeks later, the guy was coming up to our gates and he won't cross anymore, but he flipped us off on the camera. I was like, oh, he must have got the call that we knew that he came across trespassing.
Yeah. Cameras don't do a lot for prevention. They may, if they're visible, they may dissuade somebody, but they provide incredible evidence. Right. And a lot of times it simply allows us to identify who did it, whether we get a license plate or, let's face it, we deal with the same people pretty regularly. So if you get a decent face shot, there's a high probability that, within a short period of time, we'll be able to identify that human being.
Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. We could keep you for 2 hours, but you'll be back on the following Tuesday for our live at 11. So.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Marlene. Happy to come on anytime.
All right.
What's the very best part of listening to Real Estate Jerky? Hanging out with our host, Ed Parcaut, and people like our guest, Stanislaus County Sheriff, Jeff Dirkse. It's the best part. And we get to help you while we're at it. Make your dreams of home ownership come true and connect you with the very best of the best in our area so you can live your very best life. I'm Marlene Champlin, trustee sidekick to our amazing host, Ed Parcaut, MBA veteran and president of Lending for Living. If you've got questions for Ed, please reach out by dialing him at 209-404-1915. That's 404-1915. You're listening to PowerTalk 1360 KFIV. This is Real Estate Jerky, where we always give you something to chew on, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Estate Jerky here on PowerTalk 1360 KFIV, where we always give you something to chew on. I'm Marlene Champlin's sidekick to our amazing host, Ed Parcaut, NBA veteran and president of Lending for Living. Ed, oh my gosh, it's always when we get our sheriff on, Jeff, he's just great to put it all in perspective and give us what's really going on. I love getting him. I mean, but we got a deal.
Mhm.
I mean, he didn't tell us he said, yeah, crime's down, but is it really? I
Well,
mean, they are kicking butt and doing a great job, but
I think crime is down in certain areas, but then we have that fentanyl thing that, I heard about, but I didn't know it was so prevalent. I guess that's the word I'm looking for, and how bad it is. And you would think, why are these guys throwing this stuff on pills when it's killing everybody? Because you're just killing your customers. Right?
But that's to assume a drug dealer is making a business decision dealing drugs. They're not.
Or the question is this, because I mean, all this stuff's coming from China, right? So now we got China killing us with this virus, and now we got them killing with fentanyl. What's next? I know I'm being a little.
Don't ask that question. Don't even say stuff like that, because they are.
Yeah.
It's chemical warfare. I mean, Ed, how long has that been going on? You're a soldier.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing about, I try to explain to people, everybody wants us to live in this perfect world and this utopia like Star Wars or Star Trek, where everybody gets along and different planets get along. That's not where we are right now. We have Russia having issues, and you have China having issues. They just care about themselves, and that's all they care about. And we're supposed to care about everybody else. Well, I understand that, but we also have to protect ourselves. And I think we're not doing a great job right now. We need to do better. So.
Individually, and it starts as individually.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I want to say is report people. It's like voting. You don't vote because you think your vote doesn't matter. You think they're stealing it, blah, blah, blah. So you create this vicious cycle. When you don't report crime because you think that there is no ramification, you're wrong. You're wrong. Maybe that crime they can't arrest for. Harassment is a great example right now. There's not a lot of resources. It's Jeff was talking about the trafficking, and abuse and all those things. They all go into that, right? So to dedicate more resources, i.e. manpower, boots on the ground, women power, we got to report it. So if you don't report that harassment, that person that crazy person that came at you with a knife or stormed your business and starts cussing and screaming, and you don't report it, how are they going to dedicate more resources? And when that person it's right.
Yeah, basically you need to report the stuff that you think is not important so that they can understand what's going on in the area, or actually see the same person doing the same thing throughout the area. I think a lot of people are just like, why do I need to report it? They're not going to do anything. My car got broken into. They sent somebody else out. They didn't send police. Well, after the fact crimes, they can't really do much about, but they can send people out to keep track of what's going on, so they know what's going on in certain areas. And then we know, because I know when I first moved back here in 2002, my insurance went through the roof on my car because we were such a huge area for stolen cars. I know a lot of things have changed, but it's important to put that information out there so we can have that stop, and we need, as we always talk about, how do we make this better, right? And the same thing I talked about on Mike Douglas' show when I filled in this week was, how do we make California better? What can we do to make the state better for us?
That was great, Ed, by the way.
Oh, thank you. The issue, I think that people are just tired. People are thinking their voice doesn't matter. It doesn't count. But if you don't vote, that just allows somebody else to vote for you. Right? Because you never know. I mean, yes. I heard last election that people went in to vote and they're like, you already voted. No, I didn't. So, you have to be very careful. Wow, I got my little fairy dust right there.
How do you know if you don't show up? If you don't show up and exercise and you registered, I think that's the most heinous of all. People that are registered and then don't vote Really?
Everybody needs to
What?
vote. Make the time. You can do it. You can do the vote in thing yourself. Everybody needs to vote so that your voice counts. We need to, and I don't want to go stand up, we need to do this. You need to be involved with local politics. We need to make those changes and start getting, doing things and making it better. And I think a lot of it has to do with our kids, just like we were talking about on the show, making sure you spend the time with them to explain certain things to them. And also, I think one of the things that we don't explain to our kids enough is about politics. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying how when they first voted the first time, they listened to so many people and they voted totally wrong. And then they realized that that's because they listened to people instead of understanding it themselves and researching things themselves. And that, what do I always say? Research it.
You're listening to Power Talk 1360 KFIV, and this is Real Estate Jerky, and our host, Ed Parcaut, MBA veteran, mortgage expert, and president of Lending for Living. If you've got questions for Ed, you can reach out by dialing 209-404-1915. That's 209-404-1915, or visit lendingforliving.com, or you can email us at radio@realestatejerky.com. And it affects your everything about your life when you don't vote, when you don't research, when you don't report crime, when you just let it fester and be angry, which does absolutely nothing. No good whatsoever.
And it affects your family when you do that. So, right?
Yeah, it's much better to exercise the rights that you have
before they're taken away. I'm sorry, I'm just being so other side today. I apologize. Maybe it's too much looking at the stuff out there. I was actually so shocked today about the fentanyl. I did not realize. I'm still stuck on that whole thing. I knew about sex trafficking.
Well, Ed, you know what? I don't want to
talking.
talk about these people. I don't want to give the devil his due, but you personally know 2 of these young men that are dead of fentanyl. I don't think you understand that's what they died from. One was an accidental lacing. It wasn't, and the other one was straight up, never used drugs, thought he was taking a prescription, not prescribed for him. Granted, yes, it was a mistake that he got from a friend.
Right.
And it was fentanyl laced.
Right. And that goes back to when I was a kid and in school, and other people, I just don't do that. I mean, it's like, people experiment with stuff throughout their life. You got to be really careful now. It's so much more dangerous, and you need to explain this to your children. The biggest problem we run into is
like sex.
Well,
people
our children don't listen.
Having sex. We've got AIDS. We got HIV. We got STDs. Does anyone talk about that? No, instead they develop apps like Tinder and all this and act like it's a free-for-all. Come on.
Well, it's Omicron now. That's all
we give the kids HPV vaccinations or whatever the hell, and act like we're gonna say no.
How do you really feel there, Marlene?
I'm sorry, I'm on a tear too. Both of us are.
My big thing is just you need to vote. You need to vote. Voting has consequences, is what I say all the time. And we have, things coming up this year. You need to get out and vote. I'm actually still shocked. I know we're totally changing, but that nobody's running against our governor yet. Right? Why not?
Where is Reagan? Where's our Reagan?
Right. We need a young
Ronald Reagan. Where is he?
I don't know.
He's out there somewhere. He needs to run. He needs to.
I think he's in Virginia.
You love that guy, don't you?
I just like the fact that he came in, he made policy, said, this is ridiculous. Let's stop this. The parole board was letting people out early and not letting the victims know that they just let them out. Right. And they're supposed to do that. And so they get rid of the parole board and start over. Those are things we need to do. Stop letting, just get rid of things and start from the beginning. The problem is we're too afraid to offend people these days. People get too offended. Just like the whole issue the sheriff was talking about, crime. We were talking about the trains and stuff, and it's a misdemeanor when you're stealing off those trains in LA. And the issue with that is nothing's being done. We don't need a task force. We know what we need to do. Get back to hard on crime, get rid of that whole $950.
Enforce
limit.
The laws we already have. Stop passing freaking new ones.
All right, let's enforce this one. We got to go. All right, it's the end of the day. Sorry, it's the end of our show. Not like completely end of our show, but thanks for joining us today. I want to thank our sheriff, for coming on today. It's always great to have him on, and unless you find out how bad certain things are in our area, like we did today, but we still have amazing stuff going on in our area. In the months ahead, we'll be visiting with more candidates for Congress and Assembly. Jack Griffin will be joining us. He's one of our Republican candidates for Congress in District 5. And remember, if you're out there and you're running, we want you on. We don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. I don't even know if the Tea Party's around. We want you. We're in contact with Tom McClintock. Also, we're for District 5, Josh Harder, District 9, Joel Campus for Assembly, District 22. And there's so many. So listen, it's very important that you know what's going on with the elections. You need to understand. You need to find out who your candidates are so you can support the ones you want to support, not just be told what to do. So listen, I know one of the reasons our elections have been so all over the place. How are you supposed to get to know our candidates when we don't even know what district we're in? We'll do our very best to bring you up to date with what's going on with our districts, and for the election day, make sure we know what district we're really running for, who's in it. Jeez, you got too many districts on here, man. Is that how bad it is? There's so many districts. We're so messed up. We have no idea who this is. So, hey, we're going to figure this stuff out for you. So bear with us. And, remember, if you want to listen to us after the fact, you can find us via podcast on anywhere you have your podcast app. We are broadcast on Saturdays at 12 noon and on Sundays at 10 a.m. unless football changes that. And I don't think we have anything coming up. Remember, you can just find us on Real Estate Jerky. Just Google us and you can find us there. Sorry, Marlene, I'm all over the place today.
I'm still glad you're here, even when you're all over the place. And thank you so much for helping so many people become homeowners and continue to establish their dream of home ownership and building personal wealth. I so appreciate that you're doing it.
All right. My MLS license number is 235-384.